Kyle Bennett wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at the broken sensor in his hands. The small device had stopped working 3 days ago, and now he had to fix it before the colony administrator noticed. He was 16 years old and worked as an assistant to his father, who maintained all the equipment around New Haven. New Haven was not much to look at. It was a collection of metal buildings and plastic domes sitting in the middle of a vast forest. 3,000 people lived there, trying to build new lives on a planet called Kepler 442b. The planet was beautiful but deadly. Strange animals roamed the forests, and some of them were big enough to tear through steel. Kyle lived with his father, Greg, and his younger sister, Lily. His mother had died during the journey from Earth, and his father never talked about it. Greg worked long hours keeping the colony's machines running, and Kyle helped him whenever he could. Lily was only 12 and spent most of her time in the colony school. The sensor was located 2 miles outside the safe zone. The safe zone was the area around the colony protected by electric fences and motion detectors. Beyond that, the forest was wild and dangerous. Kyle was not supposed to go out there alone, but someone had to fix the sensor, and his father was too busy with a water pump that had broken down. He packed his tools into a backpack and checked his equipment. He had a plasma cutter for repairs, a utility knife on his belt, and a flashbang device that made loud noises and bright lights to scare away small animals. He also carried a communicator to call for help if things went wrong. Kyle walked through the main gate and nodded to the guard on duty. The guard, a man named Pete, gave him a worried look. "You sure you want to go out there alone?" Pete asked. "I'll be fine," Kyle said. "It's only 2 miles." "I'll be back before dark." Pete shook his head but opened the gate. Kyle stepped through and heard it close behind him with a heavy clang. The forest was different from Earth forests. The trees had purple leaves that moved even when there was no wind. Small flying creatures that looked like a mix between birds and insects darted between branches. The ground was covered with moss that glowed faintly in the shadows. Kyle followed the path that colony workers had cleared. He kept his eyes open for any signs of danger. The planet had many dangerous animals, but the worst one was the razorback. It was a huge beast with 6 legs, armor-like skin, and jaws that could crush metal. The colony had lost 5 people to razorbacks in the past 2 years. He reached the sensor after an hour of walking. It was mounted on a tall pole, and he had to climb up to reach it. The problem was simple. A small animal had chewed through some wires. Kyle cut away the damaged parts and connected new wires. He tested the sensor and it blinked green. Fixed. As he climbed down, he heard something. It was a roar, deep and loud, coming from somewhere to the west. Kyle froze. That was a razorback. They usually stayed away from humans, but if one was nearby, he needed to get back to the colony fast. He packed his tools and started walking quickly down the path. Then he heard another sound. It was different from the roar. It sounded like someone crying out in pain. Kyle stopped. He knew he should keep walking. Getting involved in whatever was happening out there could get him killed. But the sound came again, and this time he could tell it was not human. The colony had neighbors on this planet. They were called the Velari. They were aliens who lived in tribes deeper in the forest. Kyle had seen them a few times during trade meetings. They were tall and thin with skin that looked like crystal. Their skin changed colors based on their feelings. The colony and the Velari had an agreement to stay away from each other most of the time. The cry came again, weaker this time. Kyle made a decision that would change his life. He left the path and ran toward the sound. He pushed through thick bushes and jumped over fallen logs. His heart pounded in his chest. After a few minutes, he broke through the trees into a small clearing. What he saw made his blood run cold. A razorback stood in the middle of the clearing. It was even bigger than Kyle had imagined, as tall as a truck and twice as long. Its 6 legs dug into the ground and its mouth dripped with saliva. In front of it, pressed against a large rock, was a Velari girl. She was young, maybe his age. Her skin flashed between purple and red colors. Purple meant fear, Kyle remembered from a training video. Red meant pain. She had a deep cut across her stomach, and blue-silver blood pooled on the ground beneath her. A broken spear lay nearby. The razorback roared and moved forward. The girl tried to crawl away, but she was too weak. Her hand reached out toward Kyle, her 3 fingers trembling. Kyle's mind raced. He should run. He should call for help. The colony guards would never get here in time. The girl would be dead in minutes. And if he tried to fight that thing with just his small tools, he would die too. But he could not move his feet. He could not turn away. Something inside him refused to let him leave her there. The razorback opened its massive jaws. Kyle saw rows of teeth like knives. He pulled the flashbang from his belt and threw it as hard as he could. It landed between the beast and the girl. The device exploded with a loud bang and a flash of white light. The razorback stumbled backward, shaking its huge head. Kyle ran forward. He grabbed the girl by her arm and pulled her behind a fallen log. She looked at him with wide eyes, her skin flashing colors he did not understand. Up close, she was beautiful in an alien way, with features that were almost human but not quite. "Stay down," Kyle said, even though he knew she probably could not understand him. The razorback recovered from the flashbang. It turned its attention to Kyle, and its small eyes filled with rage. It charged. Kyle barely had time to dive to the side. The beast's jaws snapped shut where he had been standing a second before. He rolled and came up running. His hand found the plasma cutter on his belt. The tool was meant for cutting through metal, not fighting giant animals. But it was all he had. He activated it, and a bright blue flame appeared at the tip. It would burn through flesh if he could get close enough. The razorback charged again. This time Kyle did not run. He waited until the last second, then jumped to the side and swung the plasma cutter at the beast's front leg. The flame cut through the armor-like skin, and the razorback roared in pain. But it also made the animal angrier. It spun faster than Kyle thought possible, and its tail whipped around, hitting him in the chest. Kyle flew backward and slammed into a tree. Pain exploded through his body. He felt something crack in his ribs. He fell to the ground, gasping for air. The razorback turned toward him, moving slowly now, like it knew it had won. Kyle tried to stand, but his legs would not work properly. His vision blurred, then he heard a sound. It was like singing, but stranger. The Velari girl was making the noise. Despite her wounds, she had pulled herself up to a sitting position. The sound she made was high and piercing. It seemed to hurt Kyle's ears, but the effect on the razorback was worse. The beast stopped and shook its head violently. The sound was disrupting something in its brain. Kyle realized this was his chance. Maybe his only chance. He forced himself to his feet, ignoring the pain in his ribs. He gripped the plasma cutter tightly and ran toward the razorback. The razorback was distracted by the strange sound the Velari girl was making. Kyle ran straight at the beast, his plasma cutter burning bright blue in his hand. He knew this was crazy. He knew he was probably going to die, but he could not stop himself. He jumped onto the razorback's back leg and used it to climb higher. The beast's armor-like skin was rough and gave him places to grip. The razorback felt him and started to buck like a wild horse. Kyle held on with one hand and swung the plasma cutter with the other. The flame cut into the beast's side. The smell of burning flesh filled the air. The razorback roared and spun in circles, trying to throw Kyle off. He wrapped his legs around the beast's thick neck and held on. The girl's singing stopped. She had run out of strength. Without the sound to confuse it, the razorback became more focused. It slammed its body against a tree, trying to crush Kyle between its back and the trunk. Kyle let go just in time and fell to the ground hard. His shoulder hit first. He felt it pop out of place, and the pain was so bad he almost passed out. But he rolled away as the razorback's foot came down where his head had been. The huge clawed foot dug into the dirt, missing him by inches. Kyle scrambled behind a rock, cradling his injured arm. The plasma cutter had fallen from his hand. He looked around desperately and saw it lying in the grass 10 feet away. The razorback saw it too and stepped on it, crushing the tool into pieces. Now Kyle only had his utility knife. The small blade would do almost nothing against the massive beast. He pulled it from his belt anyway. If he was going to die here, he would die fighting. The razorback moved toward him slowly. It was bleeding from the cuts Kyle had made, but the wounds were not deep enough to stop it. The beast seemed to know it had won. It opened its jaws wide, and Kyle could see all the way down its throat. A rock hit the razorback in the side of the head. Kyle looked over and saw the Velari girl. She had dragged herself to where the broken spear lay. She could not throw the spear, but she could throw rocks. She threw another one, hitting the beast in the eye. The razorback turned away from Kyle and roared at the girl. It started moving toward her instead. Kyle saw his chance. While the beast's attention was on the girl, he ran forward and jumped on its back again. This time he did not try to stab it in the side. That had not worked. He needed to find a weak spot. He remembered something from a colony briefing about the wildlife. Razorbacks had thick armor everywhere except the base of their skull, where the spine connected to the brain. Kyle climbed higher, pulling himself up the beast's neck. The razorback bucked and twisted, but Kyle held on with his good arm. His dislocated shoulder screamed in pain every time he moved, but he pushed the pain away. He reached the top of the beast's head and looked down. He could see the spot he needed to hit. It was a small gap in the armor, right where the skull met the neck. Kyle raised his utility knife and drove it down with all his strength. The blade went in deep. The razorback made a sound Kyle had never heard before. It was not a roar. It was more like a scream. The beast thrashed wildly, and this time Kyle could not hold on. He flew through the air and landed hard on his back. Everything hurt. He could not breathe. He could not move. He just lay there, staring up at the purple leaves above him. The razorback stumbled. It took a few steps, then its front legs gave out. It fell forward, and the ground shook when it hit. The beast tried to get up once, then twice. On the third try, it stopped moving. Kyle lay still for a long moment. He was not sure if the beast was really dead or just resting. Finally, he forced himself to sit up. Pain shot through his ribs and shoulder, but he was alive. He looked over at the Velari girl. She was watching him with wide eyes. Her skin was flashing colors rapidly, but Kyle did not know what they meant. He got to his feet slowly and walked over to her. Up close, he could see how badly she was hurt. The cut across her stomach was deep, and she had lost a lot of blood. Her breathing was shallow and fast. If she did not get help soon, she would die. Kyle pulled his backpack off and opened it. Inside was a medical kit that all colony workers carried. It was designed for humans, not aliens, but he hoped it would work. He pulled out bandages and a bottle of antiseptic. The girl watched him, but did not try to stop him. He poured the antiseptic on her wound, and she made a sharp sound. Her skin flashed bright red. Kyle worked as fast as he could, wrapping bandages around her stomach. The blue-silver blood soaked through quickly, but the flow seemed to slow down. He gave her a painkiller injection, not sure if it would work on her biology. Then he used the last of his medical supplies to make a pressure bandage. It was not great work, but it might keep her alive long enough to get real help. Kyle tried to use his communicator to call the colony, but it had broken in the fight. He looked at the girl. She was too weak to walk, and he was too injured to carry her. They were stuck. The girl reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were long and thin, and her skin felt cool and smooth. She made some sounds that Kyle thought might be words in her language. He wished he could understand her. "We need to get you help," Kyle said, knowing she probably could not understand him either. The girl pointed at something on her belt. It was a small device that glowed with soft light. Kyle carefully removed it and looked at it. There were no buttons or controls that he could see. He handed it back to her. She touched the device and it began to make a sound. It was like a musical tone that went up and down. Kyle realized she was calling for help, sending out a signal to her people. They waited together in the clearing as the sun began to set. The forest grew darker, and strange sounds came from all around them. Kyle stayed alert, his knife ready, even though he was exhausted. If another predator came, he did not know if he could fight it off. The girl's eyes started to close. Kyle shook her gently. "Stay awake," he said. "Help is coming. Just stay awake." Her eyes opened again and she looked at him. Even though they came from different worlds and could not speak the same language, Kyle felt like she understood him. She was trying to stay awake for him. Time passed slowly. Kyle's ribs hurt with every breath. His shoulder had swollen to twice its normal size. He was thirsty and tired, but he did not dare close his eyes. Then he heard new sounds. They were voices speaking in a language he did not know. Lights appeared between the trees, moving toward them. The girl's skin flashed colors that seemed less urgent than before. Kyle thought maybe that meant she recognized the voices. Several tall figures stepped into the clearing. They were Velari warriors, carrying weapons that glowed with the same soft light as the girl's device. They were bigger than the girl, over 7 feet tall, and their skin showed patterns of silver and gold. One of them, the tallest, stepped forward. He looked at the girl, then at Kyle, then at the dead razorback. His skin flashed through several colors quickly. He said something in the Velari language, and his voice was deep and musical. The girl spoke, her voice weak. She gestured toward Kyle and the razorback. The tall warrior's skin changed colors again. He looked at Kyle for a long moment. 2 other warriors moved forward and began treating the girl's wounds. They had medical equipment that was far more advanced than Kyle's simple bandages. They sprayed something on her wound that made it seal up almost instantly. The girl's skin began to show less red and more of a calm blue color. The tall warrior said something else, and two more warriors approached Kyle. He tensed, not sure what they were going to do, but they were gentle. They examined his injuries with careful hands. One of them had a device that hummed when passed over his shoulder. With a quick motion, the warrior popped Kyle's shoulder back into place. Kyle gasped at the sudden pain, but then the pain faded to a dull ache. The warriors wrapped his ribs in something that felt warm and solid. Whatever it was, it made breathing easier. The tall warrior gestured for Kyle to follow. Kyle tried to stand, but his legs gave out. He had used up all his strength. One of the warriors caught him before he fell. The last thing Kyle remembered was being lifted onto something that floated in the air. The girl was on another floating platform next to him. She turned her head to look at him, and her skin showed a color like soft pink. Kyle's eyes closed and darkness took him. When Kyle woke up, he knew immediately that he was not in the colony anymore. The ceiling above him was not metal or plastic. It looked like it was made of crystal that glowed from within. The walls curved in ways that seemed impossible, and the air smelled like flowers he had never encountered before. He sat up slowly and was surprised that his ribs did not hurt. He looked down and saw that someone had removed his torn shirt and replaced it with a garment made of soft, flexible material. His skin looked different too. All his scars and bruises were gone. Kyle was lying on a bed that adjusted to his body, making it perfectly comfortable. The room was beautiful, filled with plants that glowed softly. Through a wide window he could see towers made of crystal rising into the sky. This was a Velari city. Kyle swung his legs off the bed and stood up carefully. His body felt good, better than it had in years. Whatever medicine the Velari had used on him was far beyond anything humans had. He walked to the window and looked out at the city below. The Velari city was amazing. Buildings grew from the ground like plants, their crystal surfaces reflecting light in rainbow patterns. Bridges made of living vines connected the towers. Velari people walked along streets that seemed to glow from within. Flying creatures that Kyle had never seen before circled the highest towers. He heard a sound behind him and turned quickly. The door had opened without making any noise. The girl from the forest walked in. She looked completely different now. Her wound was gone, leaving no scar. She wore clothes that shimmered with different colors as she moved. Her skin showed a calm blue with hints of gold. She smiled at Kyle, and even though her face was different from a human's, he could tell it was a real smile. She said something in her language, then touched a device on her wrist. A light appeared in the air between them, and shapes formed in the light. "I am Liara," a voice said. The voice came from the device on her wrist. "This device translates our words." Kyle stared at the floating light. "You can understand me now?" "Yes," Liara said. The device on her wrist made her words into English. "I wanted to speak with you. To thank you." "How long have I been here?" Kyle asked. 2 days, Liara said. "Our healers worked on you. Your injuries were serious. Broken ribs, dislocated shoulder, many cuts and bruises. You should have died fighting the Razorback." "You were hurt worse than me," Kyle said. "Are you okay?" Liara's skin flashed with a color Kyle had not seen before. It was like purple and gold mixed together. "I am healed. Thanks to you. If you had not come, I would be dead." Kyle did not know what to say. He had acted without thinking. Looking back, he knew how stupid it had been. He could have died. The colony could have lost the peace with the Velari if he had interfered wrongly. "Why were you out there alone?" Kyle asked. Liara walked to the window and looked out at the city. "It was my trial. When Velari young people reach a certain age, they must go into the forest alone and survive for 3 days. It proves they are ready to become adults. I was on my second day when the Razorback found me." "That seems dangerous," Kyle said. "It is supposed to be dangerous," Liara said. Her skin showed hints of red, which Kyle now understood meant she was embarrassed or ashamed. But the Razorback should not have been in that area. Something drove it there. "I think someone wanted me to fail my trial." "Someone tried to kill you?" Kyle felt anger rise in his chest. "Perhaps," Liara said. "Or perhaps they just wanted me to need rescue from my own people." "That would shame me and my father." "Your father?" Kyle asked. Before Liara could answer, the door opened again. The tall warrior from the forest walked in. Up close, Kyle could see that his skin had patterns that were even more complex than Liara's. Silver and gold lines ran across his face and arms like art. His eyes were large and entirely blue, with no white parts like human eyes. The warrior looked at Kyle for a long moment. Then he spoke, and the translation device in the room picked up his words. "I am Chief Torvin," the warrior said, "leader of the Velari Confederation. Liara is my daughter." Kyle's stomach dropped. He had saved the chief's daughter. He had interfered in the trial of the most important young person in Velari society. He had probably caused a huge problem. "I'm sorry," Kyle said quickly. "I didn't know who she was. I just heard someone in trouble and I couldn't walk away." Torvin's skin flashed through several colors. Kyle could not read them all. The chief walked closer and stopped right in front of Kyle. Kyle had to look up to meet his eyes. Torvin was more than a foot taller than him. "You did not know," Torvin said. "Yet you risked your life anyway. Why?" "Because it was the right thing to do," Kyle said. "Where I come from, you don't leave people to die if you can help them. Even if that person is not human?" Torvin asked. "It doesn't matter what she is," Kyle said. "She needed help." Torvin's skin changed to a deep blue color with gold streaks. Kyle hoped that was a good sign. The chief turned to look at his daughter. "Liara tells me you fought the Razorback with only small tools," Torvin said. "That you were injured badly but continued fighting. That you gave her your medical supplies even though you needed them yourself. Is this true?" "I guess so," Kyle said. "I wasn't really thinking about it at the time." Torvin made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Not thinking, yes, that is clear. A person who was thinking would have run away." Kyle did not know if he was being insulted or praised. He kept quiet. "I need to ask you something," Torvin said. "Why did you cross the boundary? The agreement between your colony and my people says humans should stay in their territory." "I was fixing a sensor," Kyle explained. "It's part of my job. Then I heard someone in trouble." "You violated the agreement," Torvin said. "Yes," Kyle admitted. "I'm sorry. I'll accept whatever punishment you think is fair." Torvin's skin showed more colors. He looked at Liara again and they spoke in their own language for a moment. Kyle waited, his heart beating fast. He wondered if he would ever see his father and sister again. Finally, Torvin turned back to him. "In Velari culture, we have an old law. It is called the life debt. When someone saves another person's life at great risk to themselves, a bond is formed. The person who was saved owes their life to the one who saved them. This debt can never be fully repaid, but it must be honored." Kyle tried to understand what this meant. "So Liara owes me something?" "More than just her," Torvin said. "She is my only child, my heir. Without her, my leadership ends. You saved not just her life, but the future of my people. I owe you as well." "I don't want anything," Kyle said. "I'm just glad she's okay." Torvin's skin flashed bright gold. "This is why the life debt exists. You do not seek reward, yet a reward must be given. But there is a problem." Kyle felt worried again. "What problem?" "Some of my people believe you insulted Liara by interfering in her trial," Torvin explained. "They say she should have succeeded or failed on her own. They think your action suggests we are weak and need human help." "That's not what I meant at all," Kyle said. "I know," Torvin said, "but others do not see it that way. And there is another problem. Some humans in your colony will be angry that you went beyond the boundary and interfered with Velari affairs. They will worry that you damaged the peace." Kyle had not thought about that. He knew some people in the colony did not trust the Velari. They wanted to keep the two groups separate. If they found out what he had done, they might cause trouble. "What happens now?" Kyle asked. Torvin walked to the window and looked out at his city. "I have been thinking about this for 2 days. I have spoken with my advisors. Some say I should send you back to your colony and pretend this never happened. Others say I should honor the life debt in private, giving you gifts but keeping it secret." "But you don't want to do either of those things," Kyle guessed. "No," Torvin said. "I want to do something that has never been done before. I want to use this situation to build a bridge between our peoples." Liara moved to stand beside her father. Her skin showed excited colors. "Father and I have talked about this for a long time. The Velari and humans have lived on this planet together for 5 years, but we barely know each other. We trade a little, but mostly stay apart. This is not good. You want us to work together more?" Kyle asked. "Yes," Torvin said, "but change is hard. Many of my people fear humans. Many humans fear us. We need something dramatic to overcome that fear. We need a story that shows both peoples can be friends." Kyle began to understand. "You want to use what happened as that story?" "More than that," Torvin said. "I want you and Liara to become the first real bridge between our peoples. You would serve as ambassadors. You would live in both the colony and the city. You would learn both cultures and teach others. You would show everyone that humans and Velari can trust each other. Kyle's mind raced. I'm just 16. I'm nobody important. Why would anyone listen to me? Because you did something important, Liara said. You saved my life when you had no reason to. When there was no benefit for you. When it might even cause you trouble. That kind of courage speaks louder than any speech. What about my family? Kyle asked. My father and sister are in the colony. I can't just leave them. You would not leave them, Torvin said. You would spend time in both places. And they could visit you here. In fact, we hope to convince many humans to visit our city, and many Velari to visit your colony. But someone must be first. Someone must show the way. Kyle looked at Liara. She was watching him with hope in her eyes. He thought about his father and sister. He thought about the colony and all the people there. He thought about the Velari city and everything he could learn. If I say yes, Kyle asked, what exactly would I have to do? Torvin's skin showed colors that looked like satisfaction. First, you and Liara would appear before the Council of Elders. I would announce the life debt and my decision. Then you would return to your colony with a Velari delegation. We would propose a formal alliance to your leaders. If they agree, you and Liara would begin your work as ambassadors. And if they don't agree? Kyle asked. Then we return to how things were, Torvin said. Separate and suspicious. But I hope they will agree. I hope they will see this as the opportunity it is. Kyle thought about it for a long moment. This was huge. This was bigger than anything he had ever done. But something about it felt right. He had saved Liara's life without thinking. Maybe this was just the next step. Maybe this was what he was supposed to do. Okay, Kyle said. I'll do it. Liara's skin flashed bright colors that could only mean happiness. She stepped forward and put her hand on Kyle's shoulder. Thank you, she said. You have saved my life twice now, once from the Razorback and once from a boring, isolated future. Kyle smiled despite his nervousness. I hope I know what I'm getting into. None of us know, Torvin said. That is what makes it exciting. Come. There is much to prepare. Tomorrow, you will meet the council. The council hall was the largest building Kyle had ever seen. The walls were made of crystal that rose hundreds of feet into the air. Light came through the crystal in different colors, making the whole room glow. Dozens of Velari sat on curved benches that circled the center of the room. These were the elders and important leaders of the Velari Confederation. Kyle stood in the center with Liara beside him. He wore new clothes that the Velari had given him. They were comfortable but made him feel out of place. Every Velari in the room was watching him. Their skin flashed with different colors as they talked to each other in low voices. Chief Torvin stood on a raised platform at the front of the room. He raised his hand and the room became quiet. His voice filled the space, speaking in the Velari language. The translation device on Kyle's wrist turned his words into English. Council members, clan leaders, honored guests, Torvin began. We are here to discuss an event that could change our future. 3 days ago, my daughter Liara was attacked during her trial. A Razorback driven into her path by unknown forces nearly killed her. Whispers ran through the crowd. Skin colors flashed red and orange, showing shock and anger. Torvin continued. Liara would have died if not for the actions of this human boy, Kyle Bennett. He heard her cries and came to help even though he had no obligation to do so. He fought the Razorback with only small tools. He was badly injured but did not give up. He saved my daughter's life. An old Velari stood up from one of the benches. His skin showed patterns of silver and deep blue. Chief Torvin, we are grateful that Liara lives, but this human violated the boundary agreement. He interfered in a sacred trial. This cannot be ignored. Other voices joined in agreement. Kyle felt his stomach tighten. He had expected this. Torvin's skin showed calm colors. Elder Voss, you are correct. Kyle did cross the boundary. But let me ask you this. If your daughter was dying and someone came to help, would you punish them for saving her life? Voss was quiet for a moment. The law is the law. The law exists to protect us, Torvin said, not to punish those who do good. Kyle acted with courage and honor. In our culture, there is something older than the boundary agreement. There is the life debt. More whispers filled the room. A younger Velari stood up. Her skin showed aggressive red and orange patterns. The life debt is for our people, not for outsiders. And what about Liara's honor? By accepting help, she failed her trial. She is not ready to be an adult. Liara stepped forward before her father could speak. Her skin showed strong, confident colors. Counselor Sina, I did not fail my trial. Someone sabotaged it. The Razorback was driven to that location on purpose. I found tracks and disturbed ground that proved it. This was not a fair test. It was an attempt on my life. The room erupted in noise. Everyone was talking at once. Torvin raised his hand again for silence. My daughter speaks the truth, Torvin said. We have investigated. Someone wanted Liara to die or to be humiliated by needing rescue from Velari warriors. They did not expect a human to interfere. Kyle's actions saved her life and revealed this plot. Who would do such a thing? Elder Voss asked. That is what we must discover, Torvin said. But first we must decide what to do about Kyle and the opportunity his courage has given us. Another elder stood. This one was female with gentle blue and white patterns on her skin. Chief Torvin, what do you propose? Torvin looked at Kyle, then at his daughter, then back at the council. I propose a formal alliance between the Velari Confederation and the human colony of New Haven. An alliance built on trust and cooperation. And I propose that Kyle Bennett and my daughter Liara serve as the first ambassadors between our peoples. The room fell silent. This was clearly not what most of them had expected. Counselor Sina spoke up again. You want to make this boy an ambassador? He is a child. He has no training. He has something better than training, Torvin said. He has proven character. When faced with danger, he chose to help. When offered reward, he asked for nothing. These are the qualities we value most. But what about the humans? Another voice called out. They may not want this alliance. They may be angry that this boy interfered. That is why we must present this carefully, Torvin said. We will send a delegation to New Haven. We will explain what happened and propose the alliance. If they refuse, we will respect their decision. But I believe they will see the benefit. Elder Voss stood again. Chief Torvin, I understand your gratitude, but this is a huge step. We have kept our distance from humans for 5 years. Why change now? Torvin's skin flashed with serious colors. Because distance breeds fear and fear breeds conflict. Already there are those on both sides who profit from keeping us apart. The ones who tried to kill my daughter are proof of this. If we do not build bridges now, the gap between our peoples will only grow wider. A middle-aged Velari stood. His skin showed thoughtful purple colors. What evidence do you have of this conspiracy? How do we know Liara was targeted? Liara activated a device and images appeared in the air above the center of the room. They showed the forest where she had been attacked. These images were taken by scouts who returned to the site. You can see where the Razorback was herded toward my location. You can see the marks of tools used to anger it. You can see boot prints, both Velari and human. Kyle stared at the images. Human boot prints. That meant someone from the colony was involved. Both our peoples have traitors, Torvin said. People who do not want peace. They benefit from the separation. They sell weapons. They spread fear. They profit from suspicion. If we continue as we are, these people will gain more power. Eventually, they will cause a war. The room was quiet as everyone thought about this. Kyle realized how serious the situation was. This was not just about him saving Liara. This was about the future of both peoples on this planet. Elder Voss spoke slowly. If what you say is true, then we must act. But are you certain this alliance will work? Are you certain the humans will accept it? I am certain of nothing, Torvin admitted. But I am certain that doing nothing is worse. Kyle's actions have given us a chance. A story that both peoples can rally around. A human boy and a Velari girl, working together despite their differences. This is powerful, the gentle female elder spoke. I agree with Chief Torvin. We cannot pass up this opportunity. I vote to support the alliance proposal. Other elders began to speak, voicing their opinions. Some were in favor, others against. Kyle watched as Velari democracy played out. It was different from human meetings he had seen, but the basic idea was the same. People trying to make the best decision for their community. Finally, Torvin called for a formal vote. All in favor of proposing an alliance with the human colony, show your support. Lights began to appear above each elder's seat. Blue lights meant yes, red lights meant no. Kyle counted them nervously. It was close, but there were more blue lights than red. The council has spoken, Torvin announced. We will send a delegation to New Haven and propose the alliance. Kyle Bennett and Liara will serve as our first ambassadors if the humans agree. Counselor Sina stood one last time. I voted against this, but I will respect the council's decision. However, I have one condition. The conspiracy must be investigated fully. If someone among our people tried to kill Liara, they must be found and punished. Agreed, Torvin said. The investigation has already begun. We will share all information with the humans as a sign of good faith. The council meeting ended, and the elders began to leave. Some stopped to look at Kyle as they passed. A few even smiled or nodded. Others kept their faces neutral. Liara touched Kyle's arm. You did well. You stayed calm. I was terrified, Kyle admitted. So was I, Liara said. But we got through it together. Torvin approached them. Tomorrow we go to New Haven. Are you ready to see your family? Kyle felt a mix of excitement and worry. I'm ready. But what if they don't accept the alliance? What if they're angry at me? Then we will deal with it, Torvin said. But I think you underestimate your people. Humans have proven to be brave and adaptable. They left their home planet to build new lives here. That takes courage. I believe they will see the wisdom in cooperation. That night, Kyle could not sleep. He lay in the comfortable bed in his crystal room, thinking about everything that had happened. A week ago, he had been a normal colony kid helping his father fix equipment. Now he was at the center of something that could change everything. He thought about his father and sister. What would they think? Would they be proud or worried? Would they understand why he had to do this? He got up and walked to the window. The Velari city glowed softly in the darkness. It was beautiful and strange. Somewhere out there in the colony miles away, his father and sister were probably sleeping. Did they know where he was? Were they worried? The door opened quietly. Liara walked in. She seemed surprised to see him awake. Cannot sleep? She asked. Too much to think about, Kyle said. Liara joined him at the window. I am nervous too. Tomorrow everything changes. What if it doesn't work? Kyle asked. Then at least we tried, Liara said. My father taught me that trying and failing is better than never trying at all. They stood together in silence, looking out at the city. Kyle realized that over the past few days he and Liara had become friends. It felt strange to be friends with an alien, but it also felt right. If they could be friends, maybe their peoples could learn to trust each other too. Kyle, Liara said softly, thank you for saving me. And thank you for agreeing to do this. You did not have to. Yes, I did, Kyle said. When I saw you in trouble, I couldn't walk away. And now that I understand what's at stake, I can't walk away from this either. Liara's skin showed warm, gentle colors. You are braver than you think. I don't feel brave, Kyle said. I feel scared. Being brave does not mean you are not scared, Liara said. It means you do what is right even when you are scared. That is true courage, Kyle smiled. Is that more Velari wisdom from your father? No, Liara said with a laugh. That one is from me. The transport vehicle glided silently through the forest, hovering a few feet above the ground. Kyle sat inside with Liara and Chief Torvin. 5 other Velari warriors accompanied them. The vehicle was made of the same crystal material as the buildings, but it moved like magic, with no visible engine or wheels. Through the transparent walls, Kyle could see the forest passing by. They were getting close to New Haven. His heart beat faster with each mile. He had been gone for 4 days. His father must be worried sick, Kyle, Torvin said, pulling him from his thoughts. When we arrive, let me speak first. I will explain everything to your leaders. Stay calm no matter what reaction we receive. Okay, Kyle said. His mouth felt dry. Liara touched his hand. Your people will understand. They will see that this is good. Kyle hoped she was right. The transport reached the edge of the forest and New Haven came into view. The metal buildings and plastic domes looked small and plain compared to the Velari city, but to Kyle, they looked like home. He saw people moving between buildings, going about their daily work. Then someone spotted the transport and pointed. Within minutes, a crowd had gathered near the main gate. Kyle could see his father pushing through the people, his face showing relief and worry at the same time. Beside him was Lily, Kyle's younger sister, jumping up and down with excitement. The transport stopped 20 feet from the gate. The door opened with a soft sound and Torvin stepped out first. The crowd went silent. Most of the colonists had never seen a Velari up close. Torvin stood tall and proud, his skin showing calm blue and gold colors. Kyle stepped out next, and immediately his father broke through the gate and ran to him. Greg Bennett grabbed his son in a tight hug. Kyle, thank God, Greg said, his voice shaking. We thought you were dead. When you didn't come back, when we found your broken communicator near a dead razorback, we thought we had lost you. I'm okay, Dad, Kyle said, hugging him back. I'm sorry I worried you. Lily crashed into both of them, wrapping her arms around her brother. You fought a razorback? Are you crazy? Maybe a little, Kyle admitted. Colony Administrator Helen Grant approached the gate, flanked by 2 security officers. She was a stern woman in her 50s who had run the colony since its founding. Her face was hard to read. Mr. Bennett, she said to Kyle, you have caused quite a situation. And you, she turned to Torvin. Chief Torvin, I presume. This is unexpected. Torvin's skin showed respectful colors. Administrator Grant, I apologize for arriving unannounced. We come in peace to discuss an important matter. May we speak? Helen looked at the Velari delegation, then at the crowd of colonists watching everything. Very well. Everyone except essential personnel, please return to your duties. This meeting will be held in the community center. 20 minutes later, Kyle sat in the community center with Helen Grant, 3 council members, his father, Chief Torvin, and Liara. The Velari warriors waited outside. The tension in the room was thick. Helen spoke first. Chief Torvin, please explain why my equipment technician has been missing for 4 days and has now returned with the Velari delegation. Torvin stood and told the whole story. He explained about Liara's trial, the Razorback attack, Kyle's brave rescue, and the life debt. He spoke about the investigation that revealed a conspiracy. He described the council meeting and the proposal for an alliance. He spoke clearly and honestly. When he finished, the room was quiet. Helen looked at Kyle. Is this all true? You fought a Razorback to save his daughter? Yes, ma'am, Kyle said. I couldn't just leave her to die. One of the council members, a man named Victor Chen, spoke up. With all due respect to the chief, this is concerning. Kyle violated our boundary agreement. He could have caused an interspecies incident. He prevented one, Torvin said calmly. If my daughter had died and we later discovered that a human was nearby but did nothing, that would have caused far more problems. Another council member, a woman named Ruth Palmer, leaned forward. Chief Torvin, you mentioned a conspiracy. Can you provide more details? Torvin activated a device and images appeared in the air, just like in the council hall. They showed the tracks, the disturbed ground, and the boot prints, both Velari and human prints. Someone from your colony was involved in the attempt on my daughter's life, Torvin said. We do not know who yet, but the evidence is clear. Helen's face went pale. That's a serious accusation. It is a serious situation, Torvin agreed.
There are people on both sides who do not want peace.
They profit from keeping our peoples separate and afraid. They sell weapons, spread rumors, and create conflict. If we do nothing, they will grow stronger. Greg spoke up for the first time. What exactly are you proposing? An alliance, Torvin said. Formal cooperation between our peoples. Shared resources, shared knowledge, shared protection. And to begin this alliance, I propose that Kyle and Liara serve as ambassadors. They will live in both communities, learning both cultures and teaching others to trust. Victor shook his head. Kyle is just a boy. He has no training for this. He has something better, Torvin said. He has proven that he will do what is right, even at great personal risk. That is the foundation of trust. Ruth looked thoughtful. What would this alliance involve specifically? Torvin laid out the details. Trade agreements for Velari medicine and technology in exchange for human agricultural products and engineering expertise. Joint security patrols to protect both communities. Cultural exchange programs. Regular meetings between leaders. It was comprehensive and well planned. Helen stood and walked to the window, looking out at the colony. She was quiet for a long time. Finally, she turned back to the group. This is not a decision I can make alone, she said. The council needs to vote on it. And honestly, I'm not sure how the colonists will react. Many people here are suspicious of the Velari. We understand, Torvin said. We ask only that you consider it seriously. This is a chance to build something better than what we have now. Helen nodded. We'll hold a colony-wide meeting tonight. Everyone will have a chance to speak and vote. Chief Torvin, you and your delegation are welcome to stay and present your case. The meeting ended, and people began to file out. Kyle's father pulled him aside. Kyle, are you sure about this? Greg asked quietly. Being an ambassador is a huge responsibility. You're only 16. I know, Dad, Kyle said, but I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. I saved Liara's life. Now I can help save the peace between our peoples. Isn't that worth it? Greg looked at his son for a long moment, then pulled him into another hug. When did you grow up so much? Your mother would be so proud of you. Kyle felt tears in his eyes. His mother had always taught him to help others, to be kind, to be brave. In a way, everything he had done came from her lessons. That evening, the entire colony gathered in the main assembly hall. It was packed with people. Kyle sat in the front with his family, Torvin, and Liara. Helen Grant stood on a stage and explained everything that had happened. Then Torvin spoke, telling the story again and explaining the benefits of the alliance. He answered questions from the crowd. Some were hostile, but Torvin remained calm and respectful. A man in the crowd stood up. Kyle recognized him as Dan Porter, who ran the colony's equipment shop. How do we know we can trust you? We've been separate for 5 years. Why should we change now? Before Torvin could answer, Liara stood up. Her translator device activated. You ask why you should trust us? I will tell you why. Because Kyle Bennett, a human boy, trusted me enough to risk his life. He did not know me. He did not know my people. But he saw someone in need and he helped. If a 16-year-old boy can make that choice, cannot we all? The crowd murmured. Liara continued. I know many of you fear us. Many of my people fear you. But fear makes us weak. Fear keeps us apart when we could be stronger together. Kyle showed me that courage means acting even when you are afraid. He showed me that doing what is right matters more than staying safe. Can we not all learn from his example? More people began to speak. Some were in favor of the alliance, others against. The debate went on for over an hour. Finally, Helen called for a vote. All in favor of accepting the alliance proposal, raise your hands. Kyle held his breath as hands went up across the room. He counted them, comparing to the number of people not raising hands. It was close, but there were more in favor. The vote passes, Helen announced. New Haven will enter into an alliance with the Velari Confederation, and Kyle Bennett and Liara will serve as our first ambassadors. The room erupted in noise. Some people cheered, others grumbled, but the decision was made. Kyle felt Liara grab his hand and squeeze it. They had done it. Over the next few days, work began on the alliance. But there was still the matter of the conspiracy. Kyle and Liara decided to investigate together. They went back to the site of the Razorback attack with a mixed team of human security officers and Velari warriors. Kyle examined the human boot prints carefully. They were a specific type made by colony work boots. He took measurements and photos. Back at the colony, he compared them to the boot records. Only certain people had access to that type of boot in that size. Meanwhile, Liara worked with her people to identify the Velari prints. They belonged to a warrior named Krell, who had been vocal about his opposition to any contact with humans. Following the evidence, they discovered a meeting location in the forest where humans and Velari conspirators had met. Hidden in a hollow tree, they found communication devices and documents. The documents revealed a smuggling operation that had been running for 2 years, selling weapons and stolen technology to both sides. The leader on the human side was Victor Chen, the council member who had opposed the alliance. On the Velari side, it was Krell and 2 other warriors. They had planned to kill Liara to create chaos and blame it on human aggression, which would increase weapon sales. When the evidence was presented, both communities were shocked. Victor and the Velari conspirators were arrested by their respective authorities. The smuggling ring was dismantled. Kyle and Liara had exposed the plot and proven that working together made both communities safer. In the months that followed, the alliance grew stronger. Velari doctors came to the colony and taught human medics their techniques. Human engineers helped the Velari build more efficient water systems. Children from both communities started attending cultural exchange classes together. Kyle and Liara kept their roles as ambassadors. They spent 3 days each week in New Haven and 4 days in the Velari city. They taught classes, organized meetings, and helped resolve small conflicts before they could become big problems. Kyle's father and sister visited the Velari city often. Lily loved learning the Velari language and spent hours talking with Velari children her age. Greg found that he had much in common with Velari engineers, and they began collaborating on new projects. 6 months after the alliance began, Kyle and Liara stood together on a ridge overlooking both communities. Below them, they could see transport vehicles moving regularly between the colony and the city. Humans and Velari walked together along new paths that connected the 2 settlements. Hard to believe it's only been 6 months, Kyle said. It feels like everything has changed. Everything has changed, Liara said. Her skin showed happy, peaceful colors. Because of what you did. Because you chose to help me. We did it together, Kyle said. You were brave enough to accept help. Your father was wise enough to see the opportunity. My people were willing to try something new. But it started with you, Liara insisted. One choice made in a moment changed everything. You could have walked away, but you didn't. Kyle thought about that day in the forest. He remembered hearing the cry for help. He remembered making the choice to run toward danger instead of away from it. At the time, he had not thought about consequences. He had just acted on instinct, on the values his mother had taught him. Now, looking at the results of that choice, he understood something important. Big changes did not always need big plans. Sometimes they just needed one person willing to do the right thing. Even when it was hard, one act of courage could inspire others. One bridge built between two people could become a bridge between two worlds. What are you thinking about? Liara asked. I'm thinking about how lucky I am, Kyle said. I got to meet you. I got to see both our worlds come together. I got to be part of something important. We are both lucky, Liara said. We have become more than just ambassadors. We have become friends. Best friends, Kyle corrected with a smile. They stood together as the sun began to set, painting the sky in colors that existed on both Earth and this new world. Below them, humans and Velari worked side by side, building a future neither could have built alone. Kyle thought about Chief Torvin's gamble, about one choice changing fate. The chief had been right. By honoring the life debt and proposing the alliance, he had bet on the best parts of both species. He had bet on courage, compassion, and the ability to overcome fear. And that bet had paid off. Kyle knew there would still be challenges ahead. Not everyone was happy with the alliance. Some people would resist change. But he also knew that every day, more humans and Velari were learning to trust each other. More friendships were forming. More walls were coming down. Kyle, Liara said, interrupting his thoughts. Thank you. For everything. You don't have to keep thanking me, Kyle said. We're partners now. We look out for each other. Liara smiled, and Kyle could read the meaning in her skin colors without any translator. It was gratitude, yes, but also joy and hope for the future. As they walked back down the ridge together, Kyle realized something. He had gone into that forest 6 months ago to fix a broken sensor. He had come out having fixed something much more important. He had helped fix the broken connection between two peoples who needed each other, but did not know it yet. One human boy had fought a beast to save an alien girl. A chief's response had changed their fate. But the real story was what came after. The real story was about choosing connection over isolation, trust over fear, and courage over caution. That was a story worth living. That was a story worth sharing. And it was only just beginning.